Good morning from... Hey, you know what? It's temperature is a matter of perspective. I was just on the subway there, ran into a lady with, I think it was a granddaughter. And her granddaughter's from Boston, and they're all snowed in. We're not. They're seriously snowed in. And the mother that lives here, or the grandmother that lives here, is going about the temperature. I said, I used to live in Toronto, I thought it was cold, until I went to Montreal. And now, when I'm in New York, it's not that cold at all, even though we're in a polar, whatever it is. So anyhow, warm enough for people to be exercising. Anyway, I didn't grow up in a factory, but I spent a lot of time in a factory growing up. Result of, I'm not harping on this one, it was me and my dad basically, and on the way home from school, I stopped in the factory for a few hours. And, by default, I learnt a bunch of stuff about business from my dad. So my dad, how he ended up with a clothing factory is after the sort of Second World War, that era, the mentality of go get a proper job, get somewhere to work where you can stay your whole life, blah, 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 blah. And the easiest thing to get back in then was, I guess you'd call them sweatshops now. So, he started working in the clothing industry, learned how to do this, that, and the other, I guess. Became some sort of, not supervisor, maybe he was a supervisor, I don't really know. Something like that. And then when the factory was relocating, a massive 3 miles the opposite direction, he decided to start his own business with a partner who ran a candy store type thing. And they just, got a factory upstairs of a building and started with a couple of used machines. And I remember, my father driving every Friday afternoon. We'd drive from Manchester to Liverpool, and the car he had to have a big trunk, so he carried all this stuff with him, because I guess the machine they needed to do something they didn't have, so he had to subcontract the stuff out. So it was about, maybe an hour's drive, bit of time there, an hour's back, just to get some stuff finished, because they didn't have a machine or the know-how to do it. But he did it. So I learned, you got to get off your ass and you got to hustle a bit. No problem, never complained. Then all of a sudden, the visits to Liverpool stopped when he got a new machine. Another thing I learned there is technology is replacing all of us. It just is. It just is. If you think you've got a job right now that is not, that you're irreplaceable, I've got some sad news for you. It just is. Might not be today, but it's going to happen. So, a couple of things I learned as well from my dad. And I've told this story before. Clothing factories back then, if you're on a machine, you used to be facing behind the person on the machine in front of you. So it was to discourage conversation and to keep people working. And when my dad opened his factory, he did it the opposite way. He put the machines facing, so he had banks of, I think it was 8 machines in 4 at each side, all facing each other. So everyone could just talk and work. And people stayed with him for a while. So, something else I kind of picked up. When you make it an enjoyable work environment with a community, it stops being work. People actually like to show up. He never paid anyone a salary. Anyone. Everyone was on piecework. So they could earn as much as they want. They were only their income was only controlled by their efforts. But I remember certain other things. Like when a new product came in, my dad would sit down with everyone, spend time with them, and show them how to make that particular product. Because like anything else, there's little techniques involved in doing certain things. So, my dad was a guy that spent his time training other people as well as doing the thing himself. From there, what else did I learn? He always, every Friday, always had piles and piles of cash on him. Which, growing up with not a lot of money, I would see this and think, wow, we can go on vacation, we can buy a new car. Or more to the point, I can go and get some chocolate. but nothing was ever touched till everyone was paid, including the bills, everything else. So what was left was his money. Never took it out first. Reinvested, bought more machines. Think about that. How much you invest in yourself and your business. If you're not in business, how much you invest in yourself and your self-development? Do you buy books? Do you watch DVDs? Whatever. Because, you know, it's not just about business, it's about life. If you're a parent, how much do you invest in parenting? Because it's not a natural skill. You know, oh, I learned it from my parents. What if they got it wrong? And I'm sad to say most of them do. So another thing I learned, my dad would go to the bank every Friday to pick this big bag of cash up. And as I got older, I said, you know what? That's a bit risky, you just walking down the street with that. And he had this bag, and it actually had the name of the bank on the outside, so it looked like a bank bag full of cash. And I just thought it was a bank bag full of cash. And my dad hit the bag on a table and broke the table. Inside the cash